All right, well, thank you very much for coming today. My name's Burt. I'm with the California Family Council, and I'm here with some very special guests who have traveled from the Bay Area and as far as San Diego to share with you some concerns with the legislators about SB 357, a bill that will legalize loitering for prostitution. These individuals know what sex-trafficking is in California. They know what it looks like from their own personal experience or as leaders of their own anti-trafficking organizations. I'm going to start by introducing Vanessa Russell. She is the founder and executive director of Love Never Fails, an anti-trafficking organization restoring, educating, and protecting survivors of human trafficking, and they're headquartered in Hayward, California. Vanessa is also the 2020 San Francisco Coalition Against Trafficking Abolitionist of the Year, Peralta College's Professor of Computer Science and Information Technology, and she's also the Oakland Violence Prevention Coalition Gender-Based Violence Co-Chair. So Vanessa, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Greg. Well, good morning. As was mentioned, I'm Vanessa Russell. I'm the founding executive director of Love Never Fails. We are an anti-trafficking organization that represents survivors throughout the Bay Area, certainly in California and throughout the nation. I want to thank the survivor leaders that are going to be speaking here today and bringing forth their courageous stories so that those that are currently being trafficked have an opportunity to be heard and to be advocated for. As a direct service provider, I think it's important to call out a few things, and unfortunately the false narrative that is present and embodied in SB 357. This is a bill that is preying on the current anti-police sentiment in communities of color. And the narrative wants us to believe that Black women are disproportionately represented in prostitution arrest records, as if it's because the police are picking on them. But in fact, the reason for that is that Black women and Latino women are disproportionately trafficked in our nation. In fact, 6.5% of our nation's population are Black women, and yet 40% of those who are trafficked are Black women. This disproportionality is disturbing, deeply disturbing to me. And when I shared this concern with the ACLU and Senator Wiener, who have authored this bill, I said, these numbers are skewed that are being shared, and this narrative is not correct. I asked them, why not take this at its word? Why not respond to the fact that Black and Latino communities are in need of services? They're in need of daily outreach services. They're in need of trauma-informed housing. They're in need of health care, of mental health care, of child care, of transportation in order to prevent human trafficking. These are the things that we should be focusing on. And I've spoken to them and asked them why this bill, if this bill was truly meant to protect Black women, to protect Latino women, why is it that the bill did not include provisions for daily outreach, daily street outreach? Why did it not include services, trauma-informed services, so that people could actually exit the life? And if the bill creators were not trying to push their agenda of decriminalizing prostitution, not only for survivors, but also for buyers and exploiters, why didn't they propose to decriminalize loitering for survivors, but continue to hold buyers and exploiters accountable? Instead of providing help to survivors, this bill is hurting them. It's increasing demand, having survivors leaving them at the mercy of buyers and exploiters, as if being treated poorly by buyers and exploiters and even murdered and choked and killed and tortured by them is better than the treatment that they're receiving from the police. A group of 101 buyers was interviewed in Boston about their attitudes towards survivors, and one asked, "How do you feel about the women that you buy?" And he said, "I see women as a cup of coffee. You drink them and you throw them away." This is the sentiment of the people that we are leaving survivors to engage with without intervention. A few weeks ago, I took survivors, several survivors and advocates out with 2 lead attorneys from the ACLU for night street outreach so they would see what it was like to be solicited for sex in a dark alley, in a dark parking lot. That night we met 12 women. One was about 21 years old, and as we were talking with her, she just stood there and cried. She didn't want to be there. She didn't want to be there. The creators of this bill are proponents of full decriminalization of prostitution, touting the sex work is real work agenda message. You know, they haven't provided for the funding for the services to exit prostitution because they think that sex work is real work. So why provide exit strategies? They don't want to hold buyers accountable because buyers in their mind are customers. They don't want to hold exploiters accountable because exploiters in their mind are just businessmen. Because sex work is work. Sex work is real work, right? Wrong. Sex work and the sex industry have been historically racist and misogynistic, and there is no woman, no person of color, no LGBTQ plus community member that deserves to be left to die in that industry. This is not a partisan issue. This is a humanitarian issue. This is an issue that all of us need to engage on to show survivors that they deserve to be safely housed. They deserved to be trained to work in careers that provide a life of sustainability and safety. And we're grateful at Love Never Fails to be one of the organizations who is listening to survivors. And I mean truly listening. I'm ready to do what it takes to truly support and advocate for them. Thank you. And now I'm going to ask that Marjorie would come up and share a few words.
Hello, good morning. My name is Marjorie Saylor. I am the founder and CEO of a program called the Well Path. The Well Path provides emergency response, emergency shelter support services to survivors of sex trafficking and survivors of commercial sexual exploitation, those that are actively engaged in prostitution out of what they would say their choice. I provide these services in San Diego County, in California, and across the U.S. I'm also a survivor of sex trafficking myself, and so I'm here today to speak to you on behalf of my own experience and the experience of the women that I've served. I'm not going to say any names. I'm going to use fake names for the women that have given me permission to share their experiences for them. We're going to start with Carla. Carla was 17 when she was first exploited. This one is a little hard for me to talk about, but this is the truth. This is the reality. This is what it looks like out there on these streets. When she was approached by her trafficker, she thought that this was another way to make a living. Her trafficker then brought her to his gang, and he initiated her in. He turned her out by gang raping her. They gang raped her so badly that her back broke, and she had to be airlifted out. Maria, we provided services for her. She went back to the life. The recidivism is really high within this population. She didn't make it. She was shot 9 times by her trafficker. Alyssa was left in the ditch on the side of the road, stabbed 7 times with nothing but a t-shirt on. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard of women who have come to us for help, who have experienced horrific things from these buyers, not just their traffickers. They get beaten, raped, and robbed by their buyers, then they get sent home. They go home to their trafficker, and their trafficker beats them again for not making their quota. My own experience, I was working at a strip club. That's how I was introduced into sex trafficking, through the strip club, a legal channel in the adult industry. I was working as an escort as well a legal channel in sex work. You cannot have prostitution without sex trafficking. The two are inextricably linked. And with my own experience, can prove that. I went home with a police officer from my work, from my place of work at the strip club. I felt safe with him. He was a cop, you know, and he held me captive for 2 weeks and sold me to men that were with the help of the security at my strip club. I was left for dead at the end of 2 weeks. And that's how I managed getting out of that situation. I shouldn't be here today. I should be dead. That's not the only instance. You don't know what day is gonna be your last day out there on the street. You don't know. And this legislation, SB 357, it means well, but ultimately, the people that it helps, the people that benefit the most from this legislation are buyers. The buyer out there that's waiting to rape your son and daughter and stab your son and daughter and beat your son and daughter. The average age of entry into prostitution is 12 to 14 years old across the US. How is that okay? This legislation only protects the buyer and the trafficker. And the trafficker that sends his girls into your high schools to pull out your sons and daughters and recruit them, befriend them, recruit them. This legislation allows for police to not be able to intervene. I shared an experience where I had a bad experience with law enforcement. However, I was rescued by law enforcement. I feel it's very necessary that we work and we partner with law enforcement to engage these women and boys and girls on the streets. They need a reason to be able to go in if they suspect that someone is being exploited, someone is underage. SB 357, we need to oppose it. Please hear us. Do you hear us? Do you listen to survivors?
Hi, my name is Brianna Williams. I am also a C-sex survivor. I was sexually exploited as a child and was able to escape a few months shy of my 18th birthday. The first time I was trafficked, I was about 13 or 14 years old. And so, and many of the other people I would see out there would often say they were 13 or 14 years old. I would have several buyers who would often ask me, even, you know, from starting up until, you know, a few months shy of my 18th birthday, if I had younger friends. They would always say, you know, leading on up, they would say, I know you're 13, I know you're 14, I know you're 17, but do you have any friends that are 8? Do you have any friends that are 6? Do you know anybody who's younger? A lot of times, the young girls who are being trafficked, they have makeup on, they have high heels on. If no one stops and asks questions, honestly, a lot of times you can't tell how old they are. For me, I was featured on NBC missing children all across America. My mom searched for me day and night. I prayed for the day that police would come in and rescue me, and unfortunately that didn't happen for me. But through training, I think that could definitely better be improved. I was able to escape again about 6 months shy of my 18th birthday. With SB 357 legalizing loitering for prostitution, there will no longer be police officers to come and ask people that were, you know, like me, to arrest them or to intervene with them. When I was 17 years old, after being missing for about a year and a half, I had an encounter with a police officer where I was arrested. My mom had been searching for me for a year and a half with no luck. She had called several organizations who were also trying to help find me with no luck. She didn't know if I was dead or alive for about a year and a half, and the only hope that she had was when an officer encountered me, and at that time arrested me, and I was taken to juvenile hall and transferred back to Sacramento, which is where I'm from. But without that, she would have never known what happened to me. Without that, my trafficker may have killed me. There were several times when I had buyers who attempted to take my life. On one occasion, at 14, I had a buyer who picked me up in Sacramento in his pickup truck, who drove me. At this point, this was early on in my entry into the life, and I had no clue what to expect, what was going on. He took me to a dark alley and pulled a knife on me and tried to take my life. The only thing that saved me was that a car passed by, and it spooked him, and he told me to flee. Survivors need more services, like housing, like services that help them restore their lives. Services like Love Never Fails, which helped me restore my life after I got out of the life. Police officers need to be trained on how to better spot this, not eliminated. They need to be trained on the signs to look for. They need to stop people that they see. They need to stop everyone that they see in known places of trafficking, because without that, people like me would be dead. Thank you. I'm going to introduce one of my fellow survivor leaders, Hannah.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Hannah Diaz, and I am a survivor of human trafficking. If street prostitution was legal several years ago, I would not be standing here today. Legalizing the sale of sex only increases the demands of pimps and traffickers on their victims. If there is no intervention allowed by law enforcement, fatalities will increase. Police interference is one of few viable reasons victims can use to explain to their exploiters why they couldn't meet their quota, thus potentially saving them from beatings and other forms of torture. With no intervention, victims will be expected to produce double or triple their daily amount to avoid the previously mentioned consequences. Without law enforcement, it will be a likely death sentence. Overdoses, rape, people dehumanizing other people, kidnappings, recruitment, and coercion of our children, all to meet the demand and all to line the pockets of the exploiters. Law enforcement is a crucial opportunity to provide intervention and resources. With trauma-informed training and identification tactics, officers are an invaluable asset to the war against human trafficking. Thank you for coming and supporting my fellow survivors. Have a great day.
Hello everyone, my name is Sable Horton and I'm a CSEC residential counselor, I'm a CSEC trainer, I'm also a survivor of human trafficking. As you've heard from the powerful women who have spoken before me, if SB 357 passes, individuals who are being sold on the street will become even more vulnerable. Street prostitution is dangerous, and without intervention, trafficking survivors will be left defenseless, with even more lives being stolen. There are risk factors when it comes to exploitation. Some of these factors include housing instability, basic needs not being met, prior abuse and neglect, psychological and behavior challenges, and so much more. I could go on, but today I want to talk to you about some of the implications the sex industry has on those who are ensnared. Certain things happen when a person is repeatedly beaten, raped, and tortured. In fact, every time a man forces his testicles down someone's throat, that person dies on the inside. When a person is thrown out of a car because their buyer is done with them, they have to clean the blood off their hands to prepare for the next one. When a group of guys decide to gang rape a girl, when they are done, if she's alive, Instead of going to a doctor to have her wounds treated, she has to clean herself up so she can make her quota for the night. The last time I drove through the Blade, I saw a girl, maybe 14 or 15, standing on a corner with a long line of men waiting to take turns inside her. Someone's little girl was out there on the corner half naked being sold. The saddest thing is that she wasn't the only one. There were and are many more little girls out there. The sex industry is not luxurious. It's scary, sad, painful, humiliating, and it leaves a lasting impact on those who survive it. Stress is a normal part of life, but when the brain is constantly under stress, like it is with trauma and trafficking survivors, the brain adapts to it, meaning there is a constant dysregulation in emotion and thought. Trauma can lead to mental health complications such as PTSD, depression, and more. What people go through while being sold on the street completely changes the way their minds, brain, and body operates. Sometimes that damage is irreversible. Then there is the issue of substance abuse. For most survivors of exploitation, substance use did not drive them into the exploitation. It's actually the other way around. Trauma exposure makes people physiologically more susceptible to substance use due to the neurophysical impacts and the trauma symptoms themselves. The use of alcohol and drugs can provide a temporary distraction and relief from the pain they go through. The sex industry is killing us. It's literally ripping our soul, our minds, our hearts, and our bodies apart. Even if a survivor doesn't have a pimp or somehow lives to escape exploitation, the challenges don't just stop. The pain, sadness, and anger doesn't just go away. It stays and it comes in the middle of the night. It comes while they are trying to live a normal life. It comes while they are on their jobs. It comes when they are trying to build healthy relationships. And it comes back each time they hear about or have to stand up and speak about bills such as SB 357. Because for some reason, society still doesn't take them and human trafficking seriously. For some reason, society still doesn't take the abuse of girls, abuse of women, the vulnerability of the LGBTQ plus community, and human rights seriously. And for some reason, bills that make vulnerable people even more vulnerable are still being introduced today. I'm urging you to listen to survivors, to vote no on SB 357, and if this bill passes, know that it wasn't done in survivors' names. Thank you.
So we appreciate you guys being here. If you have any other questions for our folks here, you can talk to us afterwards. Thanks so much.